Hi guys, I'm Katie Room from Periapsis Press, where I review indie sci-fi and fantasy books. Today I have Jonathan Shuerger, author of In Darkness Cast, and Michael Kane, author of After Moses. We're going to talk some more about common indie criticisms. We've done 2 videos so far. This will be the 3rd one. First one was mostly on marketing. Second one was on potential problems with execution, like things like quality, control, and indie freedom. And this time it's going to be a little bit different because we are moving away from the original video that inspired me to put this together and talk about this. And we are going to be talking about a couple of bigger questions that are a little bit bigger picture, that Michael Kane actually brought up in my Discord. Hi to Anne and to Patrick, who've been waiting so very patiently in the chat. I appreciate you both very
Troopers.
much. And I am wearing merch, came in the mail today.
Kane merch.
Michael Kane's After Moses. This is the Red Spot cherry soda. What do they call it in space, Michael Kane? Do they call it soda or pop, or do they call it cola?
It's cherry soda is what it's always listed as in the book. So
there we go.
It is not. What are y'all pop up there in the?
I'm actually right on the linguistic dividing line between pop and soda.
Unfortunately, I'm right on the dividing line of Coke country.
I hate that so much.
Oh, you have no idea how much I hate it. You go to a restaurant,
I hate it so much.
You ask for a Coke, and the waitress says, "What kind of Coke?" I'm like,
"Woman, a Coke."
Coca-Cola.
It used to be cocaine. Bring that.
All right. I will throw up this first question. I just clipped it out of our conversation. And so this is in my Discord. If you're interested in joining, let me know. I'll send you a link. Someone posed the problem once as, are you really the one setting the culture if only the other side has their books in airports? Which is interesting to talk about and has some merit, even though I'm sure you see some of the immediate flaws in the posing of the question. But it does show that there are limits to indie influence, and that is a topic worth talking about. And I agree. So, talking about bigger picture impact of indies, are indies limited in the impact that we can have on the culture war?
Yes.
Elaborate.
Well, you have to look throughout history as to where all the great stories came from. What causes a story to become set into a cultural mindset, or to define a culture, or like the way Star Wars was in the 1970s. We're in the middle of the Cold War. Everyone is terrified and tired of being terrified. And then you have this bombastic, futuristic story where there's a super weapon, but we can take it out. And there's spiritual forces that are on our side, and the heroes have good attitudes about it. And we're calling on the ancient ways that are going to help us with our technology to overthrow this overwhelming set of bad guys. And we're gonna have victory. And that movie set America on fire because of the exact context in which it was. Now, in order to get a story to do that, you have to understand capacity. All right. Now, most indie authors I know that spend a good deal of their time whining on X have zero capacity. They're not wealthy. They don't know anyone wealthy. They don't have contacts who would be wealthy or provide additional publishing capacity or amplification capacity. It really does matter who speaks the words. Okay, when I say let there be light, nothing happens. When God says it, there is light. we're looking at a difference in capacity. We're looking at a difference in power. And when an indie author wants to get their story set into the culture or fighting the culture war or whatever it is we're trying to call it, I like to say building dikes just because that word is used for many things.
It's a good thing Katie's not monetized.
Not for long. This is 5 minutes in? Yeah. In order to be able to do that effectively, either it has to catch on to where the common person loves it, like Star Wars, the Star Wars phenomenon, or you have to be amplified by the king. We call them influencers now. Just like the stories were in the old days. Or you're dead 200 years and someone pulls it out of a bookshop and amplifies it. You know, you have basically most great stories that we have were amplified by bored rich people. It was all capacity. And this governs the way stories are proposed, contracted, and published today. Is those with capacity who don't have the artistic vision that, say, the indie author does, are controlling or gatekeeping what stories get put out because capacity is all. And the indie author, when we have great freedom in what we can do, but we have almost zero amplification. There's almost no power behind it. And so we, do the best that we can to amplify and to get it out to as many people as possible and get people interested, but there's no power behind it. And so really the argument here is one on capacity. Yeah, ISIS was a bunch of bad guys, but the Iraqi army didn't have the capacity or the motivation to resist them when they surged in 2014. America did. We were hamstrung a good deal by, not wanting to put boots on the ground again, which is weird. I'm like there, and I hear President Obama saying on the news, no, I'm not putting boots on the ground, and I'm like dancing with my little boots on the ground. But even with the limited capacity we were there, and we were nuking them. I mean, we were tearing them apart. I mean, we drove them out of the Cabeza province in about 3 months. And there's just a huge disparity in power. And it's the same thing when we're talking about trying to amplify a story or getting a story to have this cultural impact that we dream of it having. We're really good at vision, but we're not great at business or talking.
Respond to that, Katie. I see you thinking. I see you thinking.
I'm not wrong.
I want to hear it.
Well, I think this kind of goes back to our marketing discussion, where is any book going to have that kind of cultural impact like Star Wars?
It's harder now.
Right.
There is extreme atomization at the moment.
I don't agree. It was hard then. It is statistically almost impossible. But it has happened, and it's the same situation. I mean, Dungeon Crawler Carl, for instance. That guy started indie, and he went Royal Road. He kept going and going, and more people liked it, and it kept, adding on. The snowball kept rolling down the hill, and he kept writing and writing and writing and writing. And then he got the Walmart deal, and now he has a TV deal. And, he released his latest book, and it's a killer. It's all about gathering the right factors in place so that when the lightning strike happens, you can get a lightning strike. I just watched the movie Twisters, which was a whole lot more fun than I thought it was going to be, because I love the original Twister and I can quote it. But the movie is all about them looking at the sky and trying to predict where the storms were going to be based on moisture factors, the way the wind was blowing, what effects was being had here. Was it drawing energy from the storm system over here? So this one was going to collapse, and so we need to follow this one. It's so similar to trying to follow market trends because you're following energy. You're trying to follow, is this going to keep going or is it going to putter out? Michael keeps not jumping onto things that he's now kicking himself for not being a part of because they blew up, right? And it's just so hard to do. You can't know what's going to be great and something else that should be great and is dumb, like, 50 Shades of Grey. Twilight, horribly written. These things should not have been great, and they were. So predicting where those trends are going, I mean, it can happen. It can happen today. It's just, how do you know what factors to gather to meet whatever the needs or the pain point of the culture is, and is the culture homogenous enough at this point to all be impacted?
Well,
by
that's
the
what I
same
was talking
story
about.
the
What
same
there
way?
is, that's what I was talking about. There is more atomization right now because there are more places that people are getting their entertainment from. There are more. Not everybody is going, well, we just got to go to the movie because that's what there is. Right. It's not even the 90s where you can buy your VHS, VHS cassettes. It's not the 2000s when everybody had their DVDs. Now there's the streaming services and YouTube, and some people only watch movies on their phones now. There's just so many more things. So there is a little bit of that, like I said, that atomization that I was talking about. I mean, even just the simple fact of the matter that Tradpub pub and indies are split. Indie, it wasn't a thing in any relevant fashion 30 years ago, right? I mean, there's vanity presses, I suppose, but that's not the same thing as what the modern indie is now, that every
Right.
Joe sitting at home on their computer can, with some time and effort, produce a fairly professional product across quite a few different arts, right? So there is some of that. But again, you're right. It's not to say that there isn't still lightning strike. But it's like, is there any? Do I foresee us in a phase where there can be another Star Wars anytime in the near future? And to that answer, I say no.
It really would.
I don't agree, and I'm glad. I'm glad we get to argue, because I hate it when I'm watching the video and everybody's agreeing the whole time. Because people want things, right? And they're not getting them. Okay, Snow White just came out and it bombed. Okay, I wanted it to be. I don't want movies to fail.
Right.
I want them to be good. Borderlands. Oh my gosh, I'm such a huge fan of the Borderlands video games, and I won't touch that movie with a 12-foot pole because I don't want whatever disease it has. Like, and
maybe
it's an ache,
Maybe we're heading back to a phase, but I don't know that we're there yet.
Well, someone's going to land it. Eventually there's going to be a response, because again, the people with capacity want to keep their capacity at all costs, and they can't keep bleeding money like this. So they're going to force a shift. Like Bezos, when he ordered the Post. Was it the Post or what
Washington
Yeah.
Boston Street Journal, yeah.
No, Washington Post. Washington
Post. You're right. Yeah. He ordered them. You are now going to start reporting on relevant things, because we're losing money and we're losing credibility. And it's whatever he values. He's the guy with the capacity. He's the guy with the money. So he makes the decisions on what goes on. And you know what? A lot of these DEI initiatives were great when the economy was good, and they're going away because now people are like, what we need is actual production. We need competitiveness. And I think that's going to translate into the story market as well, because ROP lost tons of people. Wheel of Time lost tons. Amazon is just destroying franchises left and right.
Amazon can't hurt Lord of the Rings.
Amazon's not going to hurt what the fandom was before Jackson.
Right.
The Jackson fandom has been grievously injured by Rings of Power.
That's interesting that you say that. I'm not sure that that's long-term harm. I don't think anybody is going to have watched Rings of Power and then look at their steel case of Lord of the Rings and say, I'm never watching that movie again.
Well,
Right?
when
Does
you
that make
take-
sense? Do you see what I'm saying there?
Yeah, but we also take it in conjunction with all the other mistakes that are being made at the same time. I mean, people aren't getting hit just once. We have the sequel trilogy from Star Wars, which is another enshrined story set that has been disappointing.
Right, but what I'm saying is that old Lord of the Rings stuff is just going to keep printing money at the same pace that it was. I don't think less people are purchasing copies of Lord of the Rings and subsidizing half the publishing industry. Whereas I do think less people are going back to Star Wars. I do think Star Wars is hurt far worse than Lord of the Rings has been.
Oh, I agree, but they've put out more. Okay, so how did what was it called? Ride of the Rohirrim? How did that do?
Oh, awful.
Exactly. From what I hear from the people who watched it, it wasn't even that bad.
Yeah, I hear
Nobody
it's
wants
okay.
anime Lord of the Rings.
Well, that's another problem. But no one's
I think
landing.
Here's the thing: is I don't think that. Look, the movie was made so that Warner Brothers wouldn't lose
Right.
movie rights. Right? We know why they made it.
Right.
But it had the same problems of everything else of the old. Let's take the story about Helm Hammerhand, this
Yeah.
male hero of Rohan, and we're gonna make the movie about his unnamed daughter that there's like 2 sentences in an appendice about.
Which I remember because I thought that was great. But you want these stories to be good, though. You want them to be told
Absolutely.
well. And
Yes.
like Solo, okay? I don't think Solo was a bad movie.
It's
That
not
was
bad.
a good movie.
I don't get the hate. Like, it was a great adventure. I thought the guy who played
It
Han
followed
was fun.
immediately.
I thought
in the
his
footsteps.
name. I thought his name was stupid because I'm like, what? We're doing space Spanish now? Like, that's what? I don't get the reasoning.
It followed immediately in the wake of Last Jedi. And
Exactly.
That's what
hurt it. People had gotten hit and disappointed, and so they jumped. They took it out onto this next project. And man, I mean, Disney, Star Wars just started reacting, and there was just a whole lot of shooting that shouldn't have happened. But people the truth hasn't changed, that people still want these stories to be good. I cheered at the end of Rogue One when Darth Vader tore apart that hallway. Like, I was on my feet cheering. I'm like, yes, do it. Do it. Because that's what I wanted. That's what I always wanted to see. I think it was the biggest mistake George Lucas made was not having Anakin execute Order 66 in armor.
I can find better mistakes, but
we
don't have to pick apart
but
Star Wars.
That was the one that disappointed me as a kid. I still remember, like, why isn't he in armor? What is the? Because I want to see Vader in combat. There are things people want, and we're not getting them. And
So,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Go ahead. My thoughts now.
I think probably indies are poised to fulfill that cultural lightning moment better than Tradpub or the mainstream in general right now. Just because we are seeing things are still failing, right? Even if people at the top who need things to be profitable, right, are saying you guys have got to do things differently. The blue-haired managers are still there. They don't just get fired.
They're gonna be
sooner or later.
It's gonna take time, though.
But
I don't think so, because I think we're there. Okay, and actually,
I agree that the tide has turned.
In contravention to what Michael is saying, I think now it's more likely that an indie will be found and amplified because now they're looking for something that works.
There was an interesting piece of news today I saw. I might have to go back and find this. Spotify is looking for. Did you see
that? Was me. That was
that was you.
Update.
I didn't see that. I didn't see that. I
okay.
Didn't get to stay all the way.
Yeah,
through
it was on Publishers Weekly.
I saw Yuval Kordov repost it today. But Spotify was looking for submissions of stories between 10,000 and 20,000 words.
Yes.
To do audio versions of.
Yeah, they want to expand their catalog of audiobook listeners. In contravention of Audible, people are really enjoying Spotify, which is kind of like the same kind of bad guy as Audible is.
It is. It is.
But it's the good guy right now
just
because it's
destroyed
against
it.
Audible.
Spotify just destroyed a different industry that
Yeah,
instead
yeah.
of Audible. Yeah.
Spotify hates artists, musicians.
The number of albums that I purchased per year after Audible and everybody started putting all their own music on YouTube went. I mean, you gotta really impress me for me to go. No. I need to go out. I need to buy this. I need to support this person.
I don't care about supporting him. I just want to have it. Okay, I do care about supporting.
As the starving artist, I'm not starving, but as the starving artist, I occasionally got to go. Wait a second. No, I need to, and then I'll still just pull it up on YouTube while I'm working.
But I mean that thing is symptomatic. That's a mild symptom of the disease that they're trying to treat, which is we don't have any ideas. Disney hasn't had an original idea in 30 years. They have been farming other people's fields and driving them into the ground. Like scorched earth, I'm destroying this place. And I mean, DreamWorks is starting to get the same way, and DreamWorks was usually pretty. You could count on them. You know, How to Train Your Dragon was amazing. Kung Fu Panda was amazing.
How to Train Your Dragon was amazing. It was not the same as the book.
No, it's a completely different thing.
Like, but you don't care.
It's a completely different thing.
So good,
right? But
supposedly, the author of the book actually does really enjoy the movies, even if they are something totally different.
I think so.
But you can tell a different story.
I would also rather it be something be radically different than kind of the same in a destructive manner.
The Snow White abomination.
Whereas How to Train Your Dragon is just a completely different thing.
Right. Okay. And
she got paid for it, so she had a good day probably.
No one thought that the author was disrespected by it, as opposed to how they treated Tolkien's material in Rings of Power.
Right.
That was offensive. Okay. Assassin's Creed Shadows is offensive. Okay, it's not just a retelling or a dramatization of Japanese history that we're doing here. It's offensive.
Yeah.
And you can't. There's subversion, and I hate it. And then there's offensive. You can't do this. I mean, I know we're going to start seeing Billy Graham biopics where he was gay secretly. Because we had a phase of that with George Washington already. Remember when every historical figure was gay? And like every documentary series that they were doing?
Yeah, I do remember that.
That time is the people aren't tolerating it anymore. They're just not going to see it. And COVID broke it because you couldn't go to theaters anymore.
Right.
And once people didn't go to theaters anymore, they didn't have to go anymore, and suddenly theaters are like, oh, we gotta up our game, nobody's coming anymore. And then streaming services are like, you guys are kind of dying, so we're gonna start releasing release movies on our platforms, and people will pay $30 to rent it. No, I'm not. But people did.
I know one person that ever did that for any movie, and it was for Mulan, which was like the first one that did that.
No.
Because, so
that movie?
His wife is like a huge, like, Chinese martial arts fan, like movie fan. She loves that stuff.
Well, that's
she's American, right? But she just loves that. And so she was like, we're going to do it. And they did it. And it was awful.
It is such a bad. I'm a huge Mulan fan. Like, I love the cartoon Mulan. And I can't believe what they did to my girl in that. But the people aren't taking it anymore, is my point. Right. And the point, and what that means is the people with capacity are now going to look for people with the ideas. And they're going to throw spaghetti against the wall until they find the jewel. They find what's going to resonate.
The other thing that people have to think about, though, is that there is a long tail on this sort of thing. And that the things that are in production are already basically part of the doomed pipeline that created all the junk for so many years. So
Right.
even though, yes, I agree the tide is turning, there's a lot of crap in the pipeline still.
Well,
I do not know. The last movie I went to was Dune 2. And before that, I went to Godzilla -1. I don't even know what the last movie before that was. I don't know. There's not a single movie I'm looking forward to right now. Right. Because the going forward, the pipeline still out for the foreseeable future is still filled with sewage.
Yeah. But we also have different formats that are available as well, which do have shorter pipelines. They're not going to be AAA. They're not going to be, multi-million. But, I mean, you got guys who are making... You guys remember Homestar Runner?
Oh, yeah.
That was a lightning bolt in American culture because everybody was watching it. Okay?
Maybe he's just a little bit younger than me.
Production value.
At all.
I don't know how old you are, Jonathan.
This was big when I was in college in 2003.
Okay, so you're just barely older than me. I think Katie's a couple of years younger that she probably missed it.
Homestar Runner. But it had horrible voice acting, all by one guy, and it was all this. It
was all Flash animations. It was a Flash animation series on. You had to go to the website, right?
It wasn't terrible, like it was on YouTube. And it was great.
Right.
Like you got it in your email when he released a new episode. It was great.
I mean, it basically predated YouTube too, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So it wasn't like there was all these different internet video series of humor for all these distractions. It was kind of...
People are gonna... I mean, this stuff is gonna build momentum. It's gonna catch on. And the production value isn't gonna matter. Okay. I love these like TikToks and Instagrams that I'm getting of parents, talking to their phone in their car or something, and just telling a story or doing a little skit or whatever. And you'll find yourself watching 10 of them before you know what you're doing. Okay? And I look for the next one. I'm not looking for a movie in a movie theater, but I am looking for my next one of this guy talking about his wife, or his wife, shooting back at him or whatever. That stuff it's what people want. That's what the culture wants. Now, it may not be the multi-million or billion level thing, but I mean, the desire is still there. Humanity has a desire for storytelling. The gift of the storyteller, and it is a gift, has always been in demand. It's not always been respected, but it's always been in demand.
Usually not a good career choice.
Usually a terrible career choice, yes.
It always there's the Pareto distribution and for storytellers
of capacity, the way that finances work, the way that wealth works. I think who was it? Epic Indie on Substack put out a thing talking about how it's so disproportionate that wealthy indie authors are doing better than.
Right.
No,
right,
that
right.
just makes sense.
Sense.
What are we talking about? Like
if I had $20,000 to blow, right? I could make some headway. I think.
Well, your microphone gets bigger. Your loudspeaker gets bigger.
Right, exactly.
And placement matters. I know people who have blown $20,000, and they did it on a hybrid publisher that was going to be their loudspeaker.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what happened? Nobody has heard about their book.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So there's something to be said for, some tactical usage of your capacity.
You talk about capacity, and you're right. That is what, in theory, if a traditional publisher was functioning correctly, what they provide for a writer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I've I totally forgot where I was going with that. There was somewhere really clever I was going.
Those companies now have limited capacity.
Right. Well, they've killed their own capacity.
Exactly. Because that they followed a really bad theory. Which was they thought humanity wanted this story.
Well,
if they
and
wanted this
across
kind of
so
story.
many other ways too. I mean, the number of things that's gone wrong in Tradpub is more than just the DEI and the woke and all that. There's
Well, it's still all down to stories. It's how you're telling stories, and DI and woke does kill that, sure.
well, sure. I'm just
Okay.
meaning they're
But
badly run they're badly run businesses.
they are.
too.
So these are not run by business people, right?
Right.
Small presses are one of the worst things you can try to get into because a business person did not start that.
Right.
Okay.
We had that
We've
conversation.
had this discussion.
We've had that
Yeah.
conversation. Yeah.
We had this
that
discussion.
I want a suit.
Yeah.
There's a suit out there that believes in my story. Come and talk
Yes,
to me.
exactly.
I'll
If
give
you
you
can- if you can
3
find that
months.
guy-
Give me 3 months and we'll split every earning 50-50 and prove yourself.
No, they won't care about the earnings because a guy with money wants to see impact because of his money. Well, I've worked around and with rich people before, okay? And they don't care so much about the money. What they want to see are results. And if they want to see the world changed and they believe your book can do it, the money won't matter. They don't want to split the earnings. They're not even looking for a return. They just want to see the world change a little bit because of what they were able to amplify, what they were able to do.
I think we saw what we are seeing in Hollywood right now is kind of the result of people on the left doing that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Yes.
It didn't
saying,
matter that
"We
they
don't
lost money
care."
in the beginning.
The left has never stopped believing in patronage, basically.
Right.
That
Right.
they will raise up their people, put their people in institute, and part of it really is temperamentally people that are mindset of the left are more middle management minded people, more HR management, more the gears within a university. You know,
Right.
they are more temperamentally inclined to want to fill those roles and then want to fill those roles with their people. And so very quickly that's how they gummed up all of these different institutions at all
Right.
these different levels, is the people on the right are not interested in we don't think about pushing our own people and our own ideas and saying, no, this person for this position, I'm going to get this person who thinks the same thing as me because we think the same thing, we believe the same thing, and I need that person in that spot. You know, we're more likely to say, oh, we're going to hire on merit here. Well, bad ideas are part of merit, you know, but there is a very big difference in the way the left treats, and you know, this is what we were talking about, patronage, arts. You know, they're going to shovel money. They're going to shovel money into it. They're going to basically money launder to their people if that's what it takes.
Right. So a lot of leftist ideals are theory, right? We know they don't work. Okay, because they haven't yet. You know, that whole thing is like, show me the country where communism worked and we'll go for it. We'll imitate that. Okay. And it does not. All right. But the thing is that when you have tons of capacity, tons of money, whether it's inherited or you had a business idea blow up on you, like Bill Gates or Bezos or, any one of those guys, you have the capacity to, live with a theory that you like for a while. Now, you're not touched by the consequences of that theory because you were ultra wealthy and, you have guards. It's like the people that are trying to take the guns away are the ones walking around with armed bodyguards. Are the ones that put fences around the Capitol to keep people away, because, we need to make sure that you people that don't know how to control yourselves and aren't smart like us, you shouldn't have guns because you're dangerous. It's okay if we have them. And this is a very leftist mindset. And it's disrespectful, it totally ignores a whole lot of things that the American experiment was founded on. But I see it actually coming from school and not, what Michael was talking about, university. I'm talking about little elementary school.
Oh, it's all every institution has functioned this way.
You have to share. Why? So that everyone else is happy too. And so that everything is fair. Okay? Because if rich people were fair and shared with me, I'd be happy too. And we have a whole lot of projection happening there that happened with our kids. So these kids were raised, well, everything needs to be fair. Okay, everything needs to be fair. And it seems to work for a little while because everyone's trying to be nice and get along, and then the resources run out. And then you see what happens. I think a great experiment to follow on this is actually Beast Games on Amazon Prime. Because you will see people who are trying to follow moral theory but are totally ignoring the structure of the way the game works. And it does not work out for them. And they're like, you're a horrible person. I'm here to win $5 million, man, and there's only one guy who wins it. So you're dealing with this mentality. The right does not think this way, right? Okay, the right is very much results oriented, which is why artists don't get any patronage from the right. Okay, and I'm not saying that's wrong either. I don't whine about the fact that Matt Walsh doesn't amplify my book. Okay,
Right.
The guy is amplifying a goat. The guy can do whatever he wants. Okay, the right is totally results oriented. Okay, I'm not buying you soda with my taxes. Okay, that's a big sticking point for conservatives. I'm not buying you treats, I think was the verbiage that was used. Okay, that's insulting a little bit. But the left, they're a little more generous that way because it makes them feel good. We have a more performative morality. And the right has a different kind of performative morality. And it does not involve patronizing artists who should be going out and getting real jobs and contributing.
The only time I ever wade into that one is it's fine. I'm not looking for anybody's handout either, right? I'm not looking for
I will
Matt
take a
Walsh
handout.
right?
If you are watching this
right.
and you are giving out handouts.
Sure. But that's not what I'm saying, right? It's like whenever people are having those conversations. But whenever it's the guys that do have platforms say, why isn't there art on the right? I'm like, you know, that's the one that I'm like,
I love that Squidward meme that says when the problem asks you what the problem is.
You know, and speaking of that problem, something else I was thinking about today is we've got a lot of influential culture people on the right that are like entertainment. But we've just gone through this era of all this bad entertainment. And so they built these entire platforms based upon criticism of bad entertainment. Right?
Yes.
And so people are always talking about, well, why won't Critical Drinker do whatever? It's like, as if Critical Drinker tried to spend an entire episode propping up an indie, nobody would watch it.
And you see, that's where I think it's an angle or it's a pitching thing because positivity does sell. Okay?
Yes.
The movie Barbie.
It is harder
tremendously successful.
It is harder for somebody who has built their platform based upon negativity, though, to pivot.
Well,
right, because there's an audience that's built into, you know, that came for, okay, we're going to roast the latest crap out of Hollywood. Right. And so people are always giving those guys a go ahead.
Hate exhausts people. Like, hate only works when it's the other half of love. And so to keep something going, you also have to say something is good. And I think a lot of YouTube channels, a lot of influencers have failed because their audiences got tired. You know, You can't sell hate. You can sell it for a little while. It's fun. It's funny. But you can't stay that way. Now, I spend most of my day angry. I'm an angry person. I just thrive on it. But I love my little girls, and I love their hugs, and I love the joy they find in the smallest things. My 2-year-old decided jumping up and down was the funniest thing ever. And so she was just in the living room, and she was just having a blast. And so joy like that is what restores me for me, you know, going back into the whatever war or battle or sludge on X I have to wade through now. Because you'd need that restoration. This is something I used to teach my Marines because our job sucked we were listening to the worst human beings in the world talking about doing the most horrible things in the world. And I'm like, guys, you need a way to metabolize this. You need a recovery mechanism, because if you don't get one, you're going to swallow the barrel of a gun. You need to figure out a recovery mechanism. I have a great family. I have a great church. I leave work and I go do things that bring me joy and they heal me. And then I go back and fight the war. You cannot evade that. You can't drink your way out of it. You can't party your way out of it. That's not restoration. And so a lot of channels are failing because they're negativity focused. And they're like, oh, the audience just wasn't there anymore. That's just the way YouTube's algo is. No, it's not. It's content based. You have to have a positivity focus. Sometimes, I mean, for instance, Cinderella, the live action remake, loved it. It's an improvement over the cartoon.
Yeah, it's actually good.
I love that movie. I went to watch it twice.
It's the only live action Disney one I will say is actually good.
Correct. Yeah. And it's
I will
excellent.
say the cartoon, the ending is better. It's more cathartic. Hits that note right.
Yeah.
But the live action is very, very good. The
live, yeah, there's just so much I love about the live action because she is forcefully positive. It's not a I'm just this way. It's I am making an active part of my will to be positive and to be kind. I love those lines. That is strength. That is power. And I would love, I make my girls watch it because I'm like, this is something you're going to learn because this is where beauty is. What people are going to want to start doing is amplifying those positive messages. So for instance, Ben Shapiro's seen an uptick in viewership ever since he's used this line, I'm not tired of winning. Because, Trump got elected and he just gets to talk about all the great things Trump is doing, from his perspective, except the tariff thing. He hates the tariffs. Oh my gosh, he won't shut up about the tariffs. But that positivity is a good restoration mechanism for his audience. Now, there is a way, from our perspective as indie authors, you just have. I was watching things on SEO earlier, which is you have to look for searcher intent. When people are typing things into a search bar, what is their intent? What are they looking for? Okay, are they looking for a how-to? Are they looking for, give me dark fantasy, vampire, romance, shifter books, whatever. What is their intent? Okay, does your content satisfy the intent? Okay, content has to satisfy intent. So we as indie authors who are trying to find that amplification that someone else has attained, say there is a right-wing influencer and you really need him for some reason. You have to find what their intent is and then provide them the content that matches their intent, which then gives them the motivation and the incentive to amplify your content. And that's just a targeting thing. That's stuff I used to do in the NSA all the time. You find what they want and you find what they think they want. And you give it to them and then just a little bit more, usually explosive. In our world, we have a mission, right? I wrote Shades of Black for a very specific mission. That influencer does not have my mission. They may respect my mission, and because America is still infected with the thank you for your service virus. But they don't share my mission. They don't share my passion for my mission. So I have to understand their mission as well as my own and make the pitch in a way that will benefit both of us. And that's where an indie author will find amplification, is when they're able to relax, be humble. Your mission is not the most important to this other person. Okay. I love these guys that start their podcast with 4 listeners and just rant about how terrible books are these days. Okay. Look, man, that doesn't make me want to read your book. I'm not convinced you're the solution to the problem. Because anybody can tear down. It's really easy. My 2-year-old does that. She's in her deconstructionist phase. Okay. I give her junk mail to tear up. Okay? Anyone can deconstruct, but you need to convince me that you're able to build something that's worth my time and my limited money. And that's really the trick of finding it. You want to fight the culture war, you got to find capacity. You either generate it yourself, inherit it, or find someone else who did.
The generate yourself is a slow path.
Yeah.
I am closing.
And the right loves it. They're like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I don't respect you unless you've lost your house.
Bootstraps, catching up to Katie and Twitter followers. One of my goals this year is passing her.
Go for it.
I say that because Katie was one of the first people to review my books and gave me my first clump of followers on Twitter. Came from Katie. So.
Katie's gonna come up behind you and be like, "On your left, on your left." You're like, "No."
I just hope that, because I want to promote books. Like I'm not making money from it. I'm not even Amazon affiliate. Like this is my hobby. This is my passion. And so if I can help indie authors do that, like get followers and sell books, and just that much more amplification, then and I'm doing what I think I want to see in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I don't necessarily want to be myself some sort of big influencer, but I want to be one of the reviewers, right? And then have more reviewers that also do the same thing as me, right? And
not every kingdom has to be a kingdom.
Yes.
I can tell you that when I was a lance corporal at school, I was very happy to be Gen Pop because I was 28. These kids are 18, 19. We weren't really doing anything important with, the squad leaders and the fire team leader. It was like, is your room clean? Okay, cool. Go to class. The issue came when I actually got into a mission set. And I saw that my guys were being mistreated by the people who were willing to step up and take the power. They needed the power. They had ambition. They wanted to run the checklists. They wanted to tell other people they were wrong. And noticing that made me step up and say, no, I'm going to go ahead and take the billet.
Sure.
I'll take the power. Not because I want the crap that comes with it. I don't really want to sit in a meeting after 16:30, after everyone else gets to go home on a Friday. I don't want to be in this meeting. I want to go home. I want to be Gen Pop. But it takes care of my guys and it reduces stress on me too, because then I have a say in the crap that happens to me. So there's something to be said for, I don't want the power, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't have it. So like say you do get more followers.
Take the ring, Katie.
I think Katie would be great. Yeah, take the ring. I think Katie would be great at it because she is positivity focused. The problem is, and I'll take some shots at you, Katie.
Right. Just let me get a piece of paper and a pen.
Please don't start crying. The problem is that you appeal to authors because of your positivity. So I imagine you had this problem when you were in school. Okay, is that you had a lot of losers hit on you. Okay, you are very positive and you are very nice and you have time for losers. Okay, and if the problem is if you pay any attention to losers, they become like ticks. And then you have to burn them off, and that's always sad. I
think it's hilarious that you say that. Burning ticks off.
Yeah,
Not.
It's what it is. Your appeal is not actually to readers. Your appeal is to indie authors because we're losers.
I don't know about that. I think there's a lot of overlap. So
Okay.
I try not to worry about it too much.
Right.
But a lot of people become authors because they were first readers, and
Right. Right.
so and I I try to do a lot of like specific outreach to people who are asking for recommendations too.
Mhm.
So a lot of people that follow me do have author in their bio. I won't deny that.
I mean, I've got a lot of those too.
Right. I
A
think
lot of them.
I think there's a lot of overlap.
Hmm.
But I'm happy doing what I'm doing. So I'm
Well,
fine with
Wondering about that
shows.
cheap shot he took at David, man.
I married him. He's not a loser.
Oh, okay.
I married that
It's a
loser. That means
joke.
he
It was a
wasn't the
joke.
loser. He is
I
by
would only say
definition
that about David
the
because I
winner.
like him.
All right. Let's move on to the second. Let's see. I think we exhausted that. Okay. This one is interesting. This is again positive by Michael. Does any truly great indie book of the modern era survive to the next era at any scale of recognition if it is not someday picked up by a publisher?
Okay, I did have this. I did have the qualifier. I'd forgotten that I added that.
If not, are you philosophically okay with every indie you enjoy being lost as time passes?
So it says modern era. Isn't that now? How would
Yeah,
you
I'm
know if
just
it was the
saying.
next era yet?
Basic. Yeah. So that's the question. Is I posed that at Katie because Katie is a very pro indies, very pro indie, pro the whatever. It's like, does any of it survive past now if there isn't an amplification at an institutional level at some point? Right. So the best book I read last year was Fenton Wood's Hacking Galileo. Right. That book is brilliant. Right. 80s kids, hard sci-fi, slight alternate history. They're hacking NASA satellites to try and save the world from possibly some sort of eldritch horror sort of thing. It is so good.
It's Stranger Things all
It's
over
written, but it's written like a memoir, and it is so technical. There are technical things that will go way over your head, and it's like it's real. Like it's real stuff, right? It is so brilliant. Nobody will ever pick that book up. That book will never get amplification past the most absolute niche circles, right? But it is so brilliant. It is so good, right? And in 30 years, maybe I remember it. Maybe I've still got a device that has, that book hanging around on it, or maybe Kindle is still the Kindle app is still a thing, and my library is still chugging in 30 years. I don't know. But so that's kind of that question is there are obviously great things that deserve it that will never get it. So it's just what's the longevity of this stuff?
Sure.
Because that's that capacity thing. We don't have that capacity to generate enough copies in enough places for it to hang on.
The sad part about this calling or this vision, you can't call it a job because if you did, it would pay.
You could call it a job. It's
I said on Twitter that I was black last year, and I forgot I made a couple of big purchase investments late in the year, and that actually put me just into the red. I was gonna be black.
Yeah,
I was so close.
I feel that.
Then I did my taxes. Like, oh, that's right, I did spend that money on. Oh, I thought that was in January. Nope,
I just lied to everybody.
I was red last year. This year.
But it's the tragic thing about our vision is that we can create, but we don't have the capacity. We must rely on others for that capacity. I think I read that Stephen King was selling books out of the back of his car until he got his big break, which is amplified by a publisher, which was that was the good means of getting amplified then. Larry Correia was the same way, and he got amplified by Baen. And now he amplifies himself. He's actually switching his model. He's moving away from Baen, and he's actually going into indie because now he has the capacity to do that himself. And as long as you can boil these things down to their essence, first of all, there must be the gift of storytelling. You have to have a good story. You have to be able to reach the people that you're talking to. Like Snow White, I made this point on X, which was, even if the movie had been respectful, no one wants the Snow White story. No one asked for this. No one cares about the princess who was so good at princessing that she got de-princessed and then re-princessed. It's not an interesting story right now. No one identifies with this. Way more people identify with Cinderella, which is working class woman gets elevated, to a higher position. That story was that movie, or the story, was doomed to fail. Now, I like retelling. Snow White and the Huntsman was good. Once Upon a Time was interesting for a while. But
there's probably a great animated telling of Snow White, but the other thing that Snow White suffers from is the one that everyone's familiar with, and this is what I've responded to you, is that it's the Model T of animated features, right? And you watch it anymore, and there are some beautiful shots. There are some scenes which are beautiful, but it doesn't ever really come together as the art of a movie the way that so much later stuff does.
But I'm also not emotionally moved by that movie. Not
and
like
part of that is because there's stretches that are just boring too, because again, like I said, it's not a great movie.
Like, I still get
that's what I'm saying, is I think there could be some good telling of it,
but it has to be redone. It can't just be done again.
Right.
I still get chills when the Beast jumps into the middle of the wolves in Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast was my favorite as a kid.
Beauty and the Beast, Tangled, Sleeping Beauty. Those
Tangled is fantastic. It's still one of the
Tangled is the best thing that Disney's done since Beauty and the Beast. Yeah. Beauty and the Beast was the best thing Disney's done since Sleeping Beauty.
But there are
things. I wasn't allowed to watch Sleeping Beauty as a kid.
What'd you say, Katie?
I wasn't allowed to watch Sleeping Beauty as a kid.
Magic.
Nice.
Demon lady.
No, actually, I had nightmares about everything. So my mom
my wife makes that same argument. I'm like, give the kid their nightmares. Come on, they need those to grow up. But I saw a clip recently because X decided I wanted to start seeing these from a movie I wish was good, Suicide Squad. Where Harley breaks out of the whatever they had held her in, and outside is one of the Suicide Squad, and they're like, oh, man, we were trying to break you out. She was like, you were coming to get me? And he's like, yeah, we had a plan. It was a good one, too. She's like, I can go back in, and it was so moving because she is really capable, but she's so vulnerable, too. And the fact that someone valued her enough to come save her broke her. And that's such a powerful storytelling element, They accidentally got that right because that movie sucks. But I love these little elements like that you can just get and remember and keep and put into something else later. That's not in Snow White, the original. That's not in Sleeping Beauty. There's very little in Sleeping Beauty that I think is.
Oh, see, you're them fighting words. Sleeping Beauty is such a beautiful movie. It does not function on much of a plot level. It is more of an archetype movie.
Sure,
but it's also very strange in that who is the protagonist?
It's really
Charming,
more, isn't it Philip?
Philip. That's his name.
It's really the fairies, if you watch it. The three fairies are the protagonist of the movie. It's told from their perspective, and they're the ones out solving the problems. Now, they empower Philip to do his thing, but it's really the point of view character is the fairies.
They're there when she gets cursed.
That
They're
doesn't make them
take
the
care of
protagonist.
her.
It makes them the
Yeah.
motive element.
Well,
Because that movie embraces more like the idea of God making things right, in that the hero is empowered by supernatural forces.
okay, you can maybe say that they're not the protagonists. They are the point of view characters. They
Okay.
are the point of view characters. They are the structure through which we understand the story at every
Mhm.
phase going along.
Technically, Maleficent would be the protagonist because she's the one doing everything.
I reject that definition of protagonist.
Yeah,
Protagonist is the one who progress makes the story move.
that's how
Antagonist
you-
denies progress.
That's how you end up with Thanos as the protagonist of Infinity War, which I
Well, that
understand
argument
the arguments,
Is makeable.
but it's
They are trying to stop him. That makes them the antagonists.
right. But that's not how we use protagonists. That's
But
not
that's
how
what
we
it means.
usually use it. But that's not how we use
He's
it.
not the good guy, which was the argument I saw a lot.
Mm.
Now, I love that. I'm glad you brought that up because that story did impact all of American society at the same time. Because everyone was like, is Thanos the good guy? And some people were like, obviously not. Why are we talking about this? And other people were like, I don't know. He's making sense. And it was the fact that they could put out something that says Thanos commands your secrecy or your silence. And people did it. Is phenomenal.
The other thing though about Sleeping Beauty is you ain't gonna find a more beautiful movie.
That's very
Ivan
pretty.
Elwin's
Avatar
whatever his
is
name
prettier.
is. Go back. You don't know what you're talking about on Sleeping Beauty, man.
Avatar is prettier.
Go look up Ivan Elwind. Is that his last name? Ivan is his first name. Eyvind. Go look up his like landscape art that is in
Mhm.
Sleeping Beauty with the geometric trees and the different layers and oh, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful.
It's
so
beautiful. It's
But
very
in neither
beautiful.
case did that make a good movie for me.
Yeah, well, it is
Sleeping
very.
Beauty's pretty, great.
You're-
Avatar was pretty,
you're a
great.
plot
It's still
guy.
a bad movie.
You're a plot guy. I can already tell.
I'm a character guy.
I
want
want
Go
to
ahead, Katie.
say that The Rescuers is prettier.
Rescuers
That's
is-
interesting. The first
I
one?
do like the Rescuers better. I like the
Mm.
second one
Set
better.
in New Orleans.
I like the second one better. But you're right. The first one did have very good.
That is a depressing movie.
It is.
It is so depressing.
It is. That is all about human trafficking. That is a dark
Yeah, and like this dark
story.
swamp, and she's
The
putting
story is
kid
dark.
down.
It's not depressing.
It is so depressing. Listen to the music.
Oh, but Katie,
Oh,
like,
it's so gorgeous.
I have the hero archetype, right? I have the hero personality. I want to save people, and to know that this is possible, like I can't watch Sound of Freedom.
Mm.
I get so angry at all the evil I can't even see. I don't even know where to go to stop it, that it actually cripples me.
Oh man.
So Rescuers is rough.
Rescuers is a depressing movie. It's just like praying in the orphanage to get at the beginning to get adopted.
It's fantastic. It's
It's good.
It
It is a good
prompts very,
movie.
very awkward questions from my very young children. Why is your mom so mean? Why is your mom
Oh.
weirdo?
That's rough. I just showed my girls the Little Princess, the Shirley Temple.
Oh, it's Shirley Temple.
Little Princess. And they're like, where's your dad? When's your dad coming back? What? And they just didn't understand this concept of not having loving parents.
Right.
Hmm.
Can you imagine sending your kids to boarding school? Like
I-
public school is bad enough.
I
Like,
imagine it every day. No, I could not do that. Like, we made the decision to homeschool because, first of all, it's not just what public school teaches, it's what the kids at public school teach.
Right.
And I just didn't want them to be a part of that culture.
Yep.
I learned all the bad stuff I know from sleepovers.
Yeah, my kids are never having a sleepover. Never.
Yeah. Yep. And
Well, then.
that's how you fight the culture war. You take your kids and you put them in boxes, and you never let them out.
Those are 17 when you kick them out.
Until 17, when you sign them up for the army to give them the real world.
And you always have to answer the question, but what about socialization?
Yeah, I've seen your kids socialize, so still not impressed. Like, my kid can form coherent thoughts because all they hang around with are adults.
I've known exactly I knew one really weird homeschool guy in college, but he was going to be weird no matter what.
Homeschooling wasn't his problem.
Right.
Exactly.
They were
probably
just
would
more
have
like,
been
let's limit exposure, shall we? This
probably
kid's
would have
gonna
been
get beat up.
weirder otherwise.
Yeah. We used to beat kids up in my day. I know this. I was the kid getting beat up.
Yep, they still do.
Yeah.
I have family in the public school system, and their hands are tied.
Oh, I know. All these videos I'm watching of like brutality. It was nothing like when I was in school. You didn't get beat down. And we're talking like gang violence.
Yeah.
I have a kid in my kung fu class, and he's Jewish. And because of the events of the last couple of years, I'm like, we're going to update your training curriculum a little bit because I'm going to teach you how to fight a mob. Because this is what you need.
Yeah, it's not a good thing. Indies though.
This is the stuff we're trying to address, right? This is
Right.
the symptoms we're trying to treat. We're trying to also hit the root causes of what's going on and trying to find enough critical mass to, I need this to, what you guys watch The Core? You guys remember The Core? It was like in the 2000s.
Oh, that is such a bad movie.
It was a good movie.
Are you kidding me?
Oh my God.
That movie is so bad it thinks about coming back around to good, but it is a bad movie.
God. Whatever. It was fun. But it was
do you know that movie, Katie?
The
Nope.
core of the Earth stopped rotating.
It stops rotating.
Oh.
And they're gonna they've got basically a tunneling machine. They're gonna tunnel down to the Earth's core and set off nuclear weapons to get it spinning again before it creates all this catastrophic stuff.
I remember hearing
But
about
their
that.
problem was that when they got to the core, it was less dense. The material in the core was less dense than they thought it was, which meant the one bomb they were going to set off was going to dissipate. It wasn't going to have the effect and continue the propagation that they were looking for. So they did a sequential series of detonations instead to create a, kind of cyclic thing. I don't know what.
I love how they like pretend
is.
this science solution when it is like,
well, it's sci-fi. This has been done for forever. Okay, I love the line in "Thank You for Smoking," which is, it's thank God we invented the whatever device. That it lets you do stuff like that. But my point is that trying to address propagation of an idea or of a written work or whatever is you understanding what medium you're trying to propagate this signal.
That's your analogy? My goodness, what an analogy! I'm just shocked that you thought of that.
That's my analogy because it works.
That was like a Patrick level analogy, pop culture analogy, Katie. You'll know Patrick probably. He was in chat earlier. But my goodness, he can come up with the wildest pop culture analogies. Continue, Jonathan.
I'm done.
Right.
That was the analogy.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I haven't seen it. So
do you understand the idea that I'm talking about, though?
I think so.
Signal propagation needs sufficient density. So there has to be enough nodes that are going to propagate the signal. Enough, like sound doesn't carry in a vacuum kind of a thing. And then things need to continue to repropagate the signal after the initial propagation has occurred so that you obtain momentum and then you get self-sustaining progress, which is how you get your viral effect.
Sure.
Sometimes it's a one singular detonation. Most of the time it's repropagation.
I think kids are important as far as carrying stories into the next era. I think that's undeniable. So part of that repropagation is having them
Mhm.
accessible.
Nostalgia is a great force for moving stuff forward. Like I'm showing my kids Justice League. The animated series, animated Superman, animated Batman, and then the Justice League series after that, and they love it because it's great storytelling, and I love it, and so I can sit down and watch it with them. We sit down and watch SpongeBob together, the early ones. The later ones got weird, but we sit down, we enjoy it together, and it gets reinforced because Dad's enjoying this with us. So you have a reinforcement component that comes to this story. I think something that'd be super helpful for indie authors is if families read our books out loud or listen to them together. But that doesn't exist culturally right now. We have TV to read books for us. And the family is so compartmentalized right now anyway. That everyone has their boxes that they look at. Kids are on their tablets, mom and dad are on their phones. There's very little sharing of stories anymore, more than hitting the share button. And that's another problem that we have to deal with, is because stories have to be propagated for them to gain momentum. But as a culture, we're fragmented.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very hard to gain momentum anywhere. Everyone has to share the same thing at the same time. You guys know the story of the War of the Worlds, right? Here's another analogy for you, Michael. The radio program came out and got broadcast to everyone like it was actually happening.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone freaked out because they thought aliens were invading. Okay? That's a cultural event. Everyone got to share in that at the same time, and they probably all had a big laugh about it.
That's one thing that school does, is forces a group of people to all experience the same story at the same time.
We're all gonna hate this together.
Usually it's hating. Except for the nerdy girl who ended up going into that hardcore.
I mean, almost all of us came out hating The Great Gatsby, right?
Oh, yeah.
Can we bring that one up
They
again?
didn't even make me read that. But I knew if the book said American literature on it, I was going to hate everything in it.
I got out really lucky in public school and had a lot of really good teachers. And we read better stuff than average, but man, The Great Gatsby was the only thing that to this day I resent being made to read.
Man, I actually was so angry over this because I'm like in a Christian school. I was so angry over the swill I was being forced to read or grade and then report on that I wrote her 2 papers. One was to get the grade, and then I wrote her my rant. And I actually got a meeting because I'm like, what are you teaching? How am I supposed to produce anything good when I'm being force-fed this swill through a funnel and being forced to form an opinion on? I don't want to read Russian literature. This stuff sucks. You know it sucks. You say it in class that it sucks. This is a dangerous mentality, guys. All of you read it. Okay? This is poison, guys. Drink it all.
The way that literature is taught is unfortunate. It's a lot of times it's done by literary era, right? So American lit, it's going to be a depressing unit, just because that's unfortunately that's what America put out in the literary sphere.
And we never read anything cool like the Three Musketeers,
Yeah.
Something that's a classic and fun at the same time.
It really should be more about curating the kind of mindset that you want to give people, right?
Well, when you're
giving them stories that do that instead of teaching them about all of the horrible worldviews that you could possibly have.
But also look at the format in which a creative piece of content is being relayed. Okay, it's a compliance-based system.
Very much so.
Like our school system is designed to produce factory workers. You sit in your seat, you stay quiet, you do what you're told, and if you don't, we'll drug you into submission. And then you want to teach literature in that, you are forced to read this, and then if you don't, you're going to write me a paper on it. I don't care. You know, you will write an opinion on it, whether you liked it or not, and that opinion will match mine. Okay, and I ran into that when I was in college. I unfortunately had a very feminist, bitter English teacher. Okay, and of course, my stupid body, I wrote why women shouldn't be in combat for my persuasive essay. Okay, guess what I got a C on?
I
It
am
wasn't very
continually,
persuasive.
Yeah, clearly I failed.
I am continually reminded that I did have above average public school experience.
Oh, that was Christian college.
Oh man. One of my favorite teachers was a teacher that we disagreed on like basically everything. She was like this old school Catholic liberal whatever. I had her multiple times in high school. We had so much fun. It was great. It was like she was an old school teacher.
Yeah.
I had her for this this basically was a senior level like history debate class. And there were a bunch of us guys that were just always arguing with her, right?
Yeah.
And she would never let us all be on the same team. And she finally let us be on the same team for Vietnam. And she wanted us to take a Warhawk position because she figured that the poor girls that we were always arguing against would be able to take us down on that one. And we went full nuclear on them. And when I say full nuclear, we were like pro using nuclear weapons and we just steamrolled them. And it was the funniest thing. And she laughed. She was like, never again. You guys are never going to be on the same team again. But she gave us A's.
But you see, that's a good way to teach because that actually encourages creativity. That
It is. She was a good teacher.
Problem
like
solving.
I said, she was. We
Okay.
we disagreed on everything, but she was actually a good teacher.
But you,
like I said, I had a unicorn experience in high school. I
right,
recognize
but
that.
you cannot teach creativity through force. You cannot teach someone to enjoy someone else's creative work through force. I actually had a principal of a school say, I want to buy a batch of your books and, you know, give them to students to read as part of their reading curriculum. And I was like, I would love those sales, and that makes me feel good as an author, but I have to say no, because no one should be forced to read this. I have a problem with that because that's not why I wrote this. And like the whole reason I wrote Shades of Black the way I did was not to be preachy, because that's what raises shields. It's not to have an agenda. That's what raises shields. And the whole point of taking the truths of Scripture and putting it into a fictional format was to have people have their guard be down, be relaxed. Okay, I'm not knocking at your door with a pamphlet. Okay, I tried to format something in a great story that you would enjoy so that you would hear truth or you would read truth. And so if you're going to take this and force teenagers to read it, that works against what I'm doing. So I had to shoot, and it made me sad. Like, what am I doing? I'm stupid.
I think as far as indies lasting, I'm not too worried about it. Like I have the books that I want, right? I'm, as much as possible, buying physical copies, having them. And when I'm dead, my surviving children and grandchildren will go.
Where did these come
with this?
You'll be on your Viking longship with all your books.
Oh my God. They'll get dumped in a
Burn me
there.
with my tones.
It smells like ink.
I hope that my kids enjoy the same kinds of books that I do, but like I acknowledge that I have kind of a niche interest.
Hmm.
And they may love books and value books just as much as I do and be like, I am never picking up sci-fi, mom, right? Like, so
Yeah.
but they're here. So inevitably, when they're like, Mom, I have read everything in your house, be like, okay,
Mhm.
here's more. Like I have like several boxes in the other room. Like
Go find your own. It's training a palate, you know. You learn what tastes good. That's something they say in the Bible. One of the prophecies of Jesus, that he shall eat honey so that he learns what is good. And that's a concept I use in my fiction, is that it should be good, it should taste good, it should be an enjoyable experience. Because otherwise your message is not going to get out there. I read so much stuff. I just DNF'd a book that I was trying to read to support the guy, and it's just bland. There's no voice.
Me.
It was not you. I would tell you. I have no problems telling people, hey, you should probably work on this. I want you to be successful, and this is not. But I'm just not enjoying this book. And I know there's people who don't need it to be deeper than it is. Okay. Like I get that there's differing tastes and stuff like that. I'm not into anime, for instance. I don't really understand what people get out of it. It's not an emotional draw for me. I'm not experiencing what other people are experiencing. And yes, I watched the anime you said was good, and I still didn't get that. It's just not a format that works for me. Okay. I'm not knocking it though. Okay, if you want your Japanese girls with the wiggling eyes or whatever, then you can go
like
for that.
knocking it. I don't know, man.
If I'm knocking, I'm gonna get it. But I'm glad you're enjoying it, right? I got a buddy who loves the old Dragon Ball Z. I'm glad he loves it. Okay, I know guys who still love WWE, and I just don't get it. Like, I'm a hand-to-hand guy, and I'm just watching. I'm like, I can't understand what the appeal is. But you love it, and I'm glad that you love it. Okay, keep enjoying it. I am not gonna enjoy it, and I'm not gonna pretend. But I'm glad you like it. Satisfying people's palates is one thing. I just did not enjoy this book. I get that there are people who do. I don't enjoy Larry Correa's books. Okay, I think they're kind of basic. That's fine. There's obviously tons of people out there who really like them. Okay, good. I'm glad. Okay, Brandon Sanderson, same thing. Bland, no voice, takes forever to get anywhere in the story. Okay, I'm glad that people like his books, or did.
Shot in.
Yeah, like, well, I'm not sure anymore. So I'm all for these different kinds of books going out there. I'm all for diversity. But if something's going to satisfy me, there's certain things that it has to trigger, and if something's going to trigger everyone at the same time, all the factors have to be right. I've been working on a theory of marketing lately where I think we need to go more local. I think the national scene, the international scene, the digital scene has been so overly saturated by tons of authors throwing their books into the, American market on Amazon.com and trying to work with that system. And so now everyone is stealing volume from everyone else. That I think it's actually better to focus local.
You remember when I said things were really atomized at the start, and you were like, "No, I don't know about that." That's what I'm saying.
Well, it's more reliable to do it this way. Okay, you were saying it wasn't possible for something to go like that, and I said that's not true. I said it's statistically impossible.
Oh, okay. Continue.
Okay. but everything is still there
Equivalents.
for it. Now, these are two very different things. A city getting nuked is possible, statistically unlikely. But getting those factors all together. Now, if you want to reliably propagate, well, then you do it in person. Word of mouth is the easiest, most statistically likely way to sell a book. If I get to talk to somebody, my odds are up to like 33% that I can sell them a book. And that they will enjoy it because they actually have a personal, emotional connection with the person who sold it to them. And so the propagation effect is much stronger in that instance, as opposed to, they got it on an Amazon ad, they read it, they liked it, but there's no other connection. So I'm kind of exploring the local scene and getting more strength of propagation, because if you see a party that everyone's having a good time at, what do you want to do? You want to do what they're doing, right? And it's kind of the theory.
And we can always hope that somebody sooner or later will be reached who has more reach.
Right. With someone with money, lots of money, extra money.
And hey,
You know,
maybe
you say that.
one
but
of our
it's like-
kids.
Yeah.
You say that, but it's like some of the best few weeks I had last year was when a Twitter account about 20, 30 times my size at the time. I don't know how he found After Moses. I don't know who put it to him, but he was reading through it and he tweeted multiple times about enjoying it through it. And I got dozens of sales because of this guy. Right? I mean, when I say dozens, I mean actually dozens. He only has like 12,000 followers, but his people, like, he sold a lot of books for me.
Nice.
You should look at what Anne put into the chat.
Oh, I have.
Good.
Oh,
my
I haven't
screen on
looked
full
at it in a
screen.
while.
I haven't either. I'm sorry, Anne.
Well, she hasn't been doing much lately, but this is good.
Oh,
She said, this reminds me of a feminist bookstore owner I was talking to about indies once. Yeah, that happened. She said she didn't like indies because A, she'd have to read them on purpose, and she'd have to work to sell them and recommend them.
Drug front.
I hate it when I have to work. But it's true. I mean, no one's going to sell your book like you will. And I know for sure no blue hair is selling my book. Ain't gonna happen.
Maybe if they didn't read it. Covers.
Well,
pretty
I could
cool.
lie. I'd be like, yeah, no, definitely, it's feminist, sure. You see, the spider is female, and it's very much a becoming the queen kind of book thing. But
my book might not be as, military styled, but it's not very feminist either. My series is not very feminist.
and that's why it won't be sold. You'll never be in Target.
If a feminist
Right.
makes it to book 5, she's burning the entire series.
She's gonna be pretty mad at book 5.
And that's you're
probably.
looking for that J.K. Rowling effect at that point. I want feminists to be mad at my book so they buy it to burn it.
I really want to know. I want to know how many sales John got this week. I want to know if his angry.
I'm curious about
Twitter.
that because I don't know.
I'm
if he got
curious.
any.
I surely there's a few. He definitely got some followers out of it.
It must have been an uptick of some kind.
Yeah, I'm just curious
I
because
checked his channel to see if he picked up new subscribers, and it doesn't seem like the needle wiggled much. Well, not since his last big surge. So yeah, I'm curious on that too, but I don't have enough data, so I can't.
he is like consistently a lightning rod for ticking people off.
Well, he's got everything demographically wrong with him, you know. White beard, author, has a YouTube channel.
Abrasive.
Doesn't.
I mean, he's abrasive. He knows it.
No.
Oh,
It's yeah. I'd like to see how much it mobilizes for him, though, in terms of real numbers,
sure.
not engagement numbers. Those aren't real numbers. I'd like to see that.
Oh,
Oh,
speaking
he's
of devil.
here. Yeah, the devil, he shall appear. I summon
Hi,
you.
John. We were just hoping that you had a good few days because of your.
Yeah, without going into specifics, how good have you done in terms of sales since your rocket launch?
I think it was
Rocket
trending for a
launch,
while,
car
wasn't it?
crash.
Well, his book cover is on a bunch of videos. What happened?
Why would have?
We're doing that.
I don't know. I think you took a walk through Target. That's what I thought was what happened.
Yeah. We were videoing blue hair books, and for some reason, everyone wanted to yell at you for videoing blue hair books. And so now we're wondering how many red blood books got sold because of blue hair hate.
Last, I did. Oh, there we go. Good for you.
A few dozen. Nice. Hope they enjoy them.
Hope so.
But his book has featured on thumbnails of YouTube channels that have been reporting on.
That's true.
This surge. So
I think
could be some evergreen stuff happening from that.
I know that even Clownfish was reporting on it.
Yeah. The problem is YouTube viewers are not readers.
Correct.
The demographics, there's very little cross section. There's some, absolutely.
There's some.
I watch YouTube videos and I read.
BookTube exists, but
it's just the formats are. One is much easier to get dopamine from, or it false dopamine, and so really what you need to do is throw your book at a president or something. That'll get a lot of sales, especially if people don't like the president in question. Then everyone will buy your book to throw it at the president. It'll become a movement.
John, was this review bombing on Goodreads recent from this?
You activated the blue hairs.
I hate Goodreads with a passion.
Oh, it's
I hate
so
it
bad.
so much.
Oh, such a swamp.
When I first started my website, I thought very concretely about whether or not I should just have a profile on Goodreads or just post reviews to Goodreads, and concluded that no, it really is just a garbage heap.
It really is bad. Of course, my favorite negative review has come from Goodreads, from a guy who clearly didn't read it, and he's like, "I don't know what everyone is talking about here. I feel like they're all friends of the author or something."
Hi, Ian. Yeah, I was trying to look
basic.
up. I liked his tweet just now. I was trying to look up John's most recent numbers on Twitter and liked something. Hi.
Everybody's tracking their numbers right now.
Yeah.
I think that means it's time to end the stream.
Might be so.
Everybody's on Twitter.
Come back to YouTube.
Relevant, related to
We're talking about how indies are making an impact. Stop leaving my stream.
Oh man.
Whatever.
I think
streaming into the void is fun.
Well, I think it's funny because that picture in Target, those books are not making an impact, right? They are they are examples of a genre. None of them individually are going to carry forward, make any sort of
ACOTAR will be remembered as what ended romantasy. And I kind of said this before, where the way bookstores treat books as they categorize them, and so people come in looking for categories, and that's not a really well-defined targeting mechanism. It's what we have to work with because that's what bookstores decided to do. But when you look at those shelves on Target, you're right. None of these are going to have very much impact. When you craft a piece of ordnance, I know explosives guys, and every single bomb they make is crafted with love for the job that it was meant to do. Are we blowing a door? Cool. I'm putting putty in the seams. Oh, we're just doing a lock? Okay, I'm gonna do a little bit. You see this cool little detonate? Dude, don't hold that near me. All right, they're putting everything together very specifically, and the best indie authors I know are the same way. Their books are written with care and designed to do their jobs. Their social media content is crafted with care. It is not careless, and they love it. They know exactly what it's doing and what it's meant to do. And sometimes they mess up, sometimes they blow a finger off, but, they learn from it, sew it back on, and they keep going. And those are the ones that I try to learn from because they're very, I hate this word, they're very intentional about what they're trying to do, and they're not careless. And that's mostly what I see in the indie scene, which is why so much propagation is lost, because they're careless through lack of education. They feel lost. There's a loss of confidence. If I hear the words imposter syndrome one more time, I don't feel like an author. Here, go typey type. Now you're an author, okay? You're just moving fingers on the keyboard.
Imposter syndrome isn't really a thing that you have for being an author. You either are or you're not.
It's a dopamine deficiency.
Sure.
You need a confidence boost. You need someone to pet you on the head and say, no, you're a good little author. I was telling this to Thomas the other day after we did the author update. I was like, I think authors need reviews on their books because social media has trained us to need engagement with our posts. And a book is like a post that we put out there, and we need some movement on the dial every now and then to make us feel good about ourselves. Because I noticed this in myself. If I haven't had a review in a while on my book, I'm like, come on, somebody review it. Somebody review it. And I'm like, wait a minute, why am I doing this?
Well, the other thing about reviews is it's the same. It's also video game brain. Number get bigger. Bigger
right.
Number make happy.
Yeah.
Right.
Make the good chemicals flow.
Right. As long as number get bigger,
yeah.
Grok happy.
But yeah, I mean, imposter syndrome, from what I find, is somebody who needs a confidence boost and hasn't disciplined their emotional state to, regulate that.
It's I get it. I understand you're writing a book. It's a giant task, especially if you've written a book that people have enjoyed in the past and you're looking at that sophomore sort of thing. Totally get it, right? I'm looking at finishing a series that's going to be about 900,000 words, and I'm sitting here going, I hope I can stick the landing. Right. So I understand
as you get closer
right?
and closer to the ground, you're like,
don't put it on social media. Put your fears and doubts on social media.
Right.
I mean, or if you do, don't just be like, guys, I'm just not feeling. I don't know. Does anyone else have imposter syndrome?
Yeah.
It's like at least make a self-deprecating joke. And it's like, I hope I don't hit the banana peel at the finish line.
Well, Phantom of the Opera mask
where everybody laughs about it. Don't.
Yeah, it's
because then you have fun with it, and then it goes away when you treat it as a lighthearted moment. Don't.
We had somebody who was trying
don't look for your therapy on your social media account as if you're an author.
I had a guy who was, we were making fun of this kind of thing, and he was like, I don't feel like a Marine today. And the sergeant stuck his head in and was like, can you spiral silently? Thank you. That was funny.
Well,
all right. I think I'm going to call it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to, I think it's Ian, right? Miller #1. John and Doug Wise. Who else came at the end? Somebody else.
Anne
came back.
Patrick Wade.
Strategic author.
I don't.
And was faithful.
She left. She
Yeah,
said
she did leave. She did leave, but she came back.
and
That's what's important, Katie.
if Patrick's still around, he's probably getting stuff done. Thank you guys so much for watching and for listening, participating. If you have any thoughts about the overarching impact of indies, either on the culture or over time, leave a comment, let us know, like, subscribe, and you guys have a great night.